so hard because I kept thinking, okay, I'm all right, and I'm all right at the moment, but tomorrow I could be have a flare. And it took such a toll on my mental health because I was just sort of struggling, thinking I don't know how it's going to be, that I have actually been on antidepressants now for 6 years because I was in a very dark place, thinking that the colitis was controlling my life, thinking if I was making plans, I'd have to cancel everything because of how I was feeling. And it was so tiring putting on that clown face all the time.
On today's episode of Talking Shit, I'm speaking with Jess, who got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at age 32 in New Forest, UK. Jess, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So Jess, ulcerative colitis, that was your diagnosis.
Yeah.
Let's go back to a little bit before and how it all started. Tell me a little bit about when you noticed that something was wrong or what your first symptoms were.
So going back, I always remember when I was probably in my 20s, I always sort of had tummy problems, and then I'd go to the doctors and they would always say to me it's IBS, but I could just never really sort of get that under control. But I just thought maybe it was my diet, maybe it might have been something to do with environmental factors, I don't know. And then 2 years previous to myself getting diagnosed, my brother got ulcerative colitis in 2009, and then he was rushed to hospital, and then one day, it was just so random, I just ended up out of nowhere. I felt okay. I just ended up passing mucus, and I thought I'd actually messed myself. I was laughing and I thought, what's this? And then from there, I then started, over the next couple of days, I started feeling really tired. I then was starting to pass blood. I was like in pain, and then from there, it sort of set the ball rolling where I started feeling unwell. I spoke to my brother. I said, he was like, it sounds like it. Maybe you should go to the doctors, go to A&E. But I was like, no, it can't be. But I then set the process, and it took 4 months for them to diagnose me because first of all went to the doctor. I had an internal examination. They then were giving me some suppositories at first. Then they were basically just saying that I had to wait to have a camera to be assessed on what it was.
So it took 4 months for the diagnosis to happen?
Yes, because I had to wait for the camera appointment to come through. But in my mind, I sort of knew. I was thinking, because I was losing blood every day and I was like losing weight, I was sort of understood all the symptoms. It was like I sort of knew, and I kept phoning the hospital thinking, have you got any cancellations, anything? Because I was at the point where I was like, I was in so much pain and losing so much blood and weight, etc., that I was just so desperate for the camera. And as soon as they gave me the camera, they told me straight away, yes, it is that.
So most people, when they're diagnosed with IBD, colitis, or Crohn's, they are really not familiar with the disease. In your case, having an older brother who has colitis as well, you were aware of what it was. So when the doctor broke the news to you that you also had ulcerative colitis, as somebody who was familiar with the term, what went through your mind?
Well, I was really I was thinking, oh my God, no. At the time, I was in so much pain, thinking, how can I navigate this? How can I live with this? Because my brother has never had it as severe as me. So I was like thinking, God, I don't remember him saying about how much he was bleeding like this. And then I kept seeing him that he was okay and his flare-ups weren't so bad. So I was thinking, but why is it sort of affecting me even more? And then just mentally, it just took a really big toll on me mentally.
And so you mentioned it, navigating flares. How did that continue for you now post of your diagnosis? Talk to me a little bit about, treatment plans and then how the disease or potentially disease management evolved for you.
So from then, as soon as they told me that I'd had colitis, they put me on the prednisolone steroids, gave me the rectal foam, the suppositories. I hated the steroids, but I knew that I had to be on them because I was just in so much pain. But I then work were very good to me, and I had a lot of time off work. I think all in all, I was off work for about 10 weeks. And then I went back to work very slowly, sort of reduced hours. And then it was just that process of weaning myself off, starting on the prednisolone at like 8 tablets a week and then weaning down. And then once that flare had gone and I'd got my head around thinking, okay, now I have this. And then it's like, I don't know when my next flare will be, could be. And it was always that unknowing of, could it be tomorrow? Could it be in a month? So sort of from there. But in my mind, I kept thinking, right, well, I just have to prepare myself at all times. Because how it comes on so quick, you are just not at all prepared for when you get a flare up.
And obviously, that treatment path didn't really pull you into remission, right? How did this continue?
So from there, for some reason, every 3 years, I would then have a flare, and then I was back on like the prednisolone, and then it would that would help, and then over time, I become just so immune to the prednisolone. So then they set me on. I was on. I'm really bad at all the long names, but they put me on all the different medications. I was on the drip infusions. I was on the adalimumab. Just everything. And every time I was on one infliximab for quite a while on the infusions. But I would, after about, I'd probably say I was on that maybe for 8 to 12 months, I then started getting flare up, and you just know your body. And my first sign of a flare up is always the tiredness, the thirsty, the everything like that. And I would just then went to the doctors, and then obviously see because my IBD team at the hospital were brilliant, and I would like saying, I'm feeling like I'm getting like my hands. I had really bad pains in my hands, etc. So then they were like, right, come off of that, let's try you on something else. So then it was just like a process. Then basically it was just over years, so many different medications over years that I was on, that to the point where I was just thinking, no, I'm not going to find anything to help me.
So you did then experience remission periodically, right?
Yes.
Or for a number of months.
Yeah.
But then with flares coming back, starting a new medication, going through the whole thing again.
Yeah.
How did you manage to hold on to this hope that one day you would actually find something that really works, right? And how did you also at the same time deal with the fear of, well, when is the next flare gonna hit me?
Yeah, it was so hard because I kept thinking, okay, I'm all right, and I'm all right at the moment, but tomorrow I could be have a flare. And it took such a toll on my mental health, because I was just sort of struggling, thinking, I don't know how it's going to be, that I have actually been on antidepressants now for 6 years, because I was in a very dark place, thinking that the colitis was controlling my life, thinking if I was making plans, I'd have to cancel everything because of how I was feeling. And it was so tiring putting on that clown face all the time. And they'd said to me, the very end result would be that you may need a stoma bag. And I was absolutely not. No way. I kept thinking that would be just, at the time, the worst thing that I could think of. So I was like, I've got to try everything. So I was really into yoga. I was walking a lot, just trying to do everything. But it was when people would say about, well, what causes a flare up? And I just do not know. But it was so weird that I would always then have a flare up around sort of September, October. So I don't know if it was like a seasonal change, but it was always be around that time.
So you said you were sort of afraid that colitis was really controlling your life.
Absolutely.
And it did. How did you fight back?
Going on antidepressants. It's really bad, but I just felt like I was fighting, trying to stay positive. But when I'd come home and feel so tired and just thinking, oh my God, I just don't know when I'll get another flare. But then my flares would last a lot longer. And then because I was on this medication and then that medication wouldn't work, then they try me on something else. And then something might work and I'll be like, oh my God, I've actually found it. But I would always try to research as well and read into what was available. But when you just read that there was just no cure, I kept thinking, oh my God, I've got to try and change my mindset. So I was doing everything I possibly could to try and stay positive, which was hard.
And obviously, when your medical team first mentioned surgery, living with a stoma potentially, you were completely opposed to the idea.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can try and fight back as much as we can, and yet in the end lose that battle. And I don't want to spoil it here, but in your case, you did, right?
Yeah.
So take us a little bit through how you warmed up to the idea of a stoma, and then eventually also what caused you to have surgery or need to have surgery.
Yeah. Okay. So flares on and off, and then it got to the point where it was like every 3 years, and then it was getting sort of down then to about every year. And I remember I started having a flare at this one particular time, and it was at this time I had a lot of things coming up. I was on holiday and I could feel my body changing. And in my head, I was thinking, oh no, I can't deal with this now, because my sister was about to get married. I was helping my other sister move. So in my head, I was like, I've got to keep going, which I did. And the moment it was like, I sort of did all of that, it really hit me, my flare. And then went to see my IBD team, and they said, okay, we need to have a camera to see what's going on. So whilst I was waiting for this camera, one night I just had this terrible pain in my left side, and my husband took me to A&E. I'd sat there for 6 hours, and they then told me that I've got to wait another 6 hours to see a doctor. But I said to them, and this was now about 2:00 in the morning, and I said, I can't sit here anymore because I suffer with really chronic fatigue. I just was at that wit's end thinking, I don't know what's happening. Then the next morning, I had emailed my nurse to say, I have been, is there any way you can sort of just chase the camera up for me? She rang me back straight away saying, come to the hospital now. We will just fit you in. So I went to the hospital, had the camera, and then I woke up in recovery, and all I got told was, you need to see a doctor. You've got to stay in. The doctor came and said, you need surgery. So it was like, then I was like, oh my God. So I hadn't had a chance to really think about it. They had always mentioned to me, there's only a couple of more options left with this new drug that is coming out that's just been okayed by NICE. But he said, I don't know how long you'll be waiting for it. And I was saying to him, I don't want a bag. So when obviously I got told, you've got to have this surgery, I then was at the point where I thought, I don't want it, but I want it. I cannot live like this anymore.
And then how quickly did the surgery happen? Are we talking hours, days,
Okay,
weeks?
so I was in hospital. They put me straight back on the prednisolone because they said that we need to see if we can control it. And they were pumping me with just so much of that. And that was for about a week, because they wanted to try and calm the flare down. At the time, they said, we'll get a stoma nurse to come round to you, a surgeon to come round to you. I was just like, I can't believe all this is happening, because I felt like it was out my control. But what's really ironic is that previously, when I've had flares, I was so poorly that at that moment I thought, you know what, if I need a bag, I'll have it. I just can't deal with this anymore. So when I was there, they had made me record, and I always remember they'd said to me, can you record every single time you go to the toilet? And being in the first 3 days, I remember I looked and it was like 88 times within 3 days. And it was just, at that point, I was so weak. So I think I was in for about 2 weeks before they then said, right, okay, it's tomorrow. And yeah, so then it happened.
You, in one of your Instagram posts, and if I'm not mistaken, it might have been in your very first one where you sort of introduce yourself and your journey. You wrote, and I quote, you found it difficult to even look at your stoma at the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, post-surgery, it's not just waking up with a stoma, your entire life is going to change. How did you overcome this feeling of not even be able to look at it?
It was hard because I had my surgery, and I remember I was thinking, I've got to wait for my husband to come because I didn't want to look down at all. And then, and I'd actually had one of the things I used to do, and I used to really burn myself with a hot water bottle on my right hand side. So I had really bad scarring. So I had that on one side. And then when I looked down and then I saw it, and it was like, they didn't tell me that when I would have a stoma bag, that it would be see through. So I didn't, and like the size of it, I didn't know they were going to do like 6 insertions in my stomach. It was just awful. I was like, I felt just disgusted. I felt just awful and thought, how am I going to live with this? It was awful. But I then was, all in all, I think I was in hospital for about 6 weeks because my surgery was okay, but I had a lot of infections, and I was there was at a point where I didn't know if I was going to make it, because I came home, and it was that I was being really sick. Long story short, my stomach was dilating from my stomach stopped working, and I was dilating from my stomach to my pelvis, and it was really touch and go. So I was in hospital, really dark place. I came out again. I just thought, I don't know how I'm supposed to ever. I was taking everything very literally, as in I was reading what you should wear, what you should eat, and I didn't know your whole diet changed. There's so much stuff that you can't do. So, it took me a very long time. I would say a good 2 months for me, because I was in a very, very dark place.
Do you feel like it's just one of those things where time changes everything? Time basically pushes you to accept your stoma, to accept, who you are now, or how would you describe this transformation from really hating this stoma to really accept it as part of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of restart your life.
Yeah.
What do you think sort of changed?
Yeah, I remember I was like sort of housebound for about 12 weeks. My husband's friend came round, and he said to me, my mum's got 2 bags, actually, one for bowel, one for bladder. And I don't know why. At that moment, I just thought, oh my God, what, I've got to sort myself out. I need to stop feeling sorry for myself. People have it so much worse. And then, because the first thing they always say is you need to name your stoma, as it's part of an acceptance. So I got a name. I called it Cherry because it looks like a cherry. And from there, I then reached out to a company called Colostomy UK. My stoma nurse had said to me, so I said to her, I'm struggling. I don't know anyone else. I feel so alone. I was looking at things on social media, which were quite negative, and it was putting me more in a dark place. And then Colostomy UK said, reach out to, there are some support groups. So I did go to one, which was about 20 miles away. And when I was there, I just thought, oh my God, this is like midweek. What about people that are younger? What are people that are that want to have this support, but nothing's nearer me? So that was when I was like, oh, do you know what? This stoma has saved my life. It's gave me back my life. And that was when I was like, right, I'm going to set up a support group because I needed it. And so now, a year on, and my stoma group is going so strong.
And it's amazing. And this stoma group, we're definitely going to come back to that. I want to ask you more about this. Now, some time passed since your surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You've sought some help. You're working on accepting it, sort of reclaiming your life as well. What is life like with a stoma for you today?
Amazing. I never thought I would say, I feel like I wish I'd had this years ago, because it's just now I've navigated and I know how to sort of work my way around the stoma. It's so nice to not have constant pain in my side, to not bleed, to just have my life back. I remember the nurse said to me in hospital, this is going to be such a better quality of life for you. And I remember thinking, are you joking? How is this a better quality of life? But now it honestly it is. It's really, really is how it's just made my life so much better.
And that's exactly what you want from this. That's the ultimate goal. And even though we always say like, surgery is great, but it does not necessarily count as a, full-blown cure because, even living with the stoma, there's some challenges that are attached to it. Tell me about yours. Tell me about your struggles that you still kind of face maybe day to day living with the stoma.
You do still have to make sure you chew your food much more. There's certain things you can't eat. You can't, even I used to sleep on my right hand side. I had to learn to sleep on my left. You go out and you think, oh God, what if I leak? What if it's just that awful thinking, oh my God, what if somebody can see it? But now I'm just really trying to embrace it and make it my best friend, and it is what it is. If I do leak, I think, it is, but it is hard because as well with clothing, you have to be careful sort of with clothes because certain things but I'm really trying to navigate that and to see and reach out to companies as well to see what sort of is on offer out there for people. But I wear a hernia belt all the time, which it's basically like a hernia support belt. So that really helps as well. And one thing which they didn't tell me in hospital was that you are more prone, 80% more prone to have a hernia, even down to like, I had a chest infection when I was in the hospital, and it wasn't until my husband said, shouldn't you put your hand over your stoma in case? And it was, and that's when they said that's one of the worst things for coughing, sneezing. So it's just little things like that. Always making sure I've always got electrolytes with me. I've always got to make sure I've always got like snacks because you've got to eat little and often. So it's just, it's definitely a different way that I've had to sort of navigate.
There's been a question that I've been dying to ask, and I'm going to have to open a parenthesis for this, but I want to make sure I would ask it now instead of forgetting. So you have a brother with ulcerative colitis. You have ulcerative colitis. Obviously, your IBD journeys have been quite different. Has there ever been a moment, and I'm asking this because, you said that your brother managed his disease better than you did.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a moment where you were angry at your brother, where you felt like it was unfair, where maybe you had felt envy towards your brother for being better off with his colitis, as opposed to you having to go through this trauma of surgery as well?
I think back in the day, I was very like, oh, why can't I have it so minor? Like him, like he does still suffer now, but he is on different types of medication and he sometimes is bleeding and he's not. But I've never, ever, I've just feel myself that I'm very lucky now to have had a stoma. So no, I would never, ever, I've never looked at it like that. I've only ever looked at it thinking, I wish I had it as minor as he had it at the time.
But never any resentment, basically, just because,
yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that sort of closes my parenthesis then. So looking back now at your life with the stoma, especially because, we can agree that this was sort of a traumatic experience for you at the beginning and you sort of accepted it, you live with it now. What do you wish you had known from day one of living with the stoma?
Oh my God, I just wish I knew that there was support there. I wish I knew that there was somebody to talk to, that it was going to be okay, that it's nothing disgusting. I wish that I just had somebody to talk to. I just really do. And that's why it was so important for me to set up this support group, because I felt so alone. So alone, and it's so nice to be able to talk to people that are on this, and it's like questions that you wouldn't be able to ask your friends and family because they don't really understand, but like no questions off limits, and it's just really nice to have that. But at the very beginning, I just wish I had someone there just to help me and to say it's going to be okay.
So let's talk a little bit about your support group. If I'm not mistaken, you sort of came up with the idea after you actually visited an existing one, right? That was just maybe a little bit too far away from where you live. tell me how this works. Is this all in person? Is this virtual? Is it hybrid? How many people are in that group, and what sort of topics do you discuss? Just take us through that. And I want to ask this question because most people today, they sort of just jump into social media for help.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
The communities are exploding and there's real compassion, real support online. But I think there's still sometimes a difference between, sitting on a computer or messaging through a phone and literally sitting across from somebody else. So explain to us your support group and how you run it.
Yeah, so I went to that support group. Everybody was, I don't want to say this without being rude, but everybody was probably 70 and above. I felt like, God, I wish I had somebody sort of my age to talk to. Like I said, and like I said, it was on a Tuesday, so I thought it's really hard to keep getting time off work to go, and it was like 20 miles away. And I just thought, my God, wonder what it would be like to just set up a group. And I thought, I've got absolutely no idea. So I contacted Colostomy UK and said, I was thinking about this. And they said, we'll put you in touch with somebody that has run a group before. So she rang me and said, we've been doing it for so many years. I run it in a village hall. So then what I did was I put it out on social media and just said that I had to think of a name, and I just randomly come up with So Much Love, and just put it out there to say that meet in this pub, and I'm going to be there for like 2 hours. If you have a stoma or you want to just come along to chat. Anyway, I had like 11 people turn up, and then I'd said to them, I'm just going to talk about my journey. We'll go around in a circle if you want to share, or if you don't want to share. And people were going around saying everything. And then from then, I looked into actually a hall that I hire now every 6 Saturday. And so it's in person. Anybody is welcome, just if they don't have a stoma, if they have a stoma, or if a family member wants to come along. So I'd say now I've got about 35 members. And what I do is they come along, we have we all sit around, and I get speakers in as well to talk about all different bags, or we'll talk about any conversations. I'll put an agenda together and I will ask them what do they wish to discuss. But the conversations really sort of start flowing. You might get some people that are not confident at speaking out. So at the end, what we do is I'll do like a little raffle, and I make sure we have good biscuits and tea and coffee. And then we sort of can go around and speak to each other one-on-one then if we want to. And so, yeah, it's going really well. And I've had really good feedback from there. So, and it just shows that there was obviously support that was needed.
Exactly. You're literally almost taking the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say, you said in your first sort of meeting, 11 people showed up, and I'm not familiar with the population of the town that you're living in, but it just kind of also goes to show that a lot more people than you might think are touched by IBD, right? That's really inspiring. I mean, you're inspiring me right now to basically try and set up the same thing in my town here. So it's really, really great. And I really do hope that everybody's listening, if they don't have a support group yet and are open to talk about it, to actually maybe, seek these kinds of initiatives or launch them by themselves. Because again, online support is really fantastic. And I think a lot of people find a lot of answers, to questions online. But there's just something about being in the same room and looking another person in the eye, and just knowing that, that person understands completely how I feel, what I'm going through. There's no replacement for that. So that's really fantastic, really fantastic. So support groups, that's great. It helps others. It also helps you. So I think it's probably also like self-therapy for you. So let's shift sort of like into sort of what I call the third act, which is sort of present, future, but also a little bit more sort of introspection here. Looking back at your entire IBD journey, even before surgery and now after, how do you think that colitis and living with a stoma has changed you as a person?
I think now it's changed me for the better, because I felt I'm quite a confident person, but for years I've just felt like I was just losing myself and thinking that I honestly thought, I don't know how I can deal with this pain, and I cannot deal with having this. That there was certain points where I was so dark that I just thought, I don't want to be here. It was just thinking, how can I just manage this pain? How can I just ever feel normal? And I think where now since having my stoma and noticing the change in my body, that there's so many things now that I'm doing. And it's amazing that I have this like newfound energy as well, because I feel like I haven't had energy for 14 years. And it's also as well, one thing that I will say is that I have actually got to have more surgery, as my colitis is still in me. Basically, my rectum, my rectal stump that I've got, they've saved 10 centimetres. I had a camera in January and they told me that it's still very ulcerated. And I'm due to see my surgeon in 3 weeks. And that's something that I'm not really looking forward to, but I know it will be something that has to happen. And I've got my group there. So, you know, and again, I'm just very lucky. So I look at my stoma now as in this was meant to be. It had to be, because, and like I said, I've really opened my eyes up to appreciating life as well. I know it sounds so cliche, like we all say, oh, life's so short. But when I was in hospital and I told myself if I made it out of here, that I would learn to roller skate. And I've joined a roller skating derby, and I've gone back to yoga, and I've gone back horse riding, and it's all these things. So in my mind, it's like, oh my God, I should have done all this before. But it's like proving a point to myself now that where I feel this newfound energy, that life is too short. And the pain that I had pain for so many years, that now it's just so nice to be pain-free.
Well, you said that life is short, and everybody says and keeps saying that life is short. And I got to tell you, we all say that because that is a fact. That is a fact, right? And I think it's perfectly fine to repeat facts over and over again. So, and I think, you know, what you said is really great, because earlier you mentioned that when you had your first surgery, even though you had support, you know, you wish you had support from people that, you know, would probably understand you better. Yeah. Now that you're facing another surgery potentially, or most likely, just look at the change, right? You have that support now, you know, you after this surgery, like let's say if it happens, you know, you'll be able to go back and say, well, this time around, I had all the support that I needed. And that's a truly great thing. So speaking of support, IBD does not impact us, the people who actually have and live with the disease, but it does impact the people around us. And you mentioned that, you know, you have a husband, you were married as you went through this. So how did colitis affect your close relationships, you know, husband, close family members?
Mm-hmm. I think that I was very good at putting like my clown face on, and just because I thought I'm sick of hearing myself saying I'm tired, I don't feel well, and just not having the energy. But I think I would then get to a point where I'd be like, I actually can't have no energy to do anything. And I've got 2 children and my husband at home with me, and they have just been amazing. And, you know, I do have really good friends and family that I could talk to. But when I'm poorly, like when I'm in hospital, I take myself away because I don't want people to see me like that. So that's why I will then just sort of go within myself, even though I know they're there and that I can talk to. But yeah, it's very important to speak out. But I think for years now, when I think about how my children and my husband have seen that, and I know they really suffered seeing me when it was very touch and go with me being in hospital. And now they see a different side to me now, and how they like, oh my God, you're just so different.
Yeah, no, that's a really positive development. And speaking of speaking out, you as someone who faced surgery and absolutely did not want that to happen, what would your words of advice be to people who find themselves in that same situation, right? Like who are unable to get their colitis under control and who might be facing surgery pretty soon. What would you tell those people?
That it's okay. It sounds so scary. It's so daunting. Just really research, look into it, reach out to people if there is anyone that they know, or but sometimes don't go on these forums. Sometimes can be quite negative, but just know that there is help out there. I felt like at the beginning I did not know about stomas. I didn't know what they were. And now I feel like it's everywhere. And I'm really glad that it's everywhere. I don't know if it's everywhere because now I have one and I'm seeing it everywhere. But like, I would talk about stomas and colitis all day long because I feel like I want people to know that there is help there. But that's the one thing I did. I wish because I remember they gave me a leaflet and it would say you've got to wear this certain clothes and you've got to eat this and you must. And so I was very literal to the book. And it only took me, actually, with my group, I wouldn't eat lettuce for, oh God, nearly a good 8 months because I read once I would get a blockage. Anyway, I've ate lettuce. It's absolutely fine. But it was these things that I was reading. So that's why I would say don't take anything literal. Just reach out to, even though you see these things, reach out to people on social media and, just ask them as well and say, I have had some people ask me, I'm going to have surgery, any tips? And, I would just say, just also be kind to yourself because there's a reason and it's saving you. And yes, I didn't want it, but I have got it now and, I have it and you've got to accept it. And we all adapt to change because we have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what you would say to others. But if you could go back to the day that you were diagnosed and speak to yourself, what would you say to yourself?
I would say it's okay. It's going to be tough, but you will get there. It will be hard, but you've got to find that inner strength. And no, I always feel that people with Crohn's and colitis, they find this inner strength somehow and they get through their flare-ups, get through the day just by getting up and getting washed and just seeing people. That's hard. So I would just say it's going to be okay.
With everything that you've seen, with everything that you've experienced in regards to IBD, colitis, Crohn's, do you think that we will see a cure to this in our lifetime?
I really don't know. I would absolutely love there to be. I really, really would. That's why I try to work along and just sort of with Crohn's and Colitis UK and just and I'm about to be actually a volunteer for Ostomy UK so I can go out to events and things and talk about things because I would love there to be a cure. But then if the only cure would be that you would need a bag, then I would say that that's the only cure and it would be the best cure. But surely one day, I just hope there will be one day.
No, and I think we all do. And I think, while we wait for that, no matter how long it takes, I think we need to continue to educate. We need to continue to raise awareness. We need to continue to advocate for everybody living with IBD and helping each other out. So I think you are certainly one of these people who are doing all of these things and you're doing them the right way. And I can only urge you to continue to do that because whether you're touching, one person or 2 or 3 or 11, like, the turnout of your very first meeting, it's making a difference. It really, really is. So I want to thank you for doing that, number one. And I also want to thank you for taking the time to speak to me today about your journey. It's very, very inspiring. Certainly gave me a lot of food for thought as well. So what I wish for you is, continuing success with your support group, but also all the best in your still continuing IBD journey as well. So thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Me too. Thank you. That's it for today's episode of Colitis Unfiltered. I'm Frank Tabering, and if this hit home or hit your gut, do us a favor, subscribe to the show, and follow us at Colitis Unfiltered on YouTube, Substack, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Reddit. We'll see you soon for more inspiring stories from the bathroom floor.